What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. We're in full steam with the summer movies, and one of them was ones I was a little on the fence about, but honestly, walking away from it, it's still great to watch it. And if you haven't guessed already, we're talking about the fifth one in this franchise, which is Toy Story 5, starring Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Joan Cusack, and the whole crowd is back from the last few movies. This is a spoiler-free review, so we're not going to ruin it for any of y'all. But if you did happen to like the movie, you like our channel, what we talk about, feel free to give us that thumbs up, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, subscribe. You know, we do appreciate you all for joining us and ranting with us. But yeah. So the last Toy Story movie I want to say was like 29, something a little bit before 2020, I believe. I could be wrong on that one. It's been a while since we've gotten Toy Story back though. And Woody and Buzz are back at it where, like Buzz and Jesse's group of toys are being threatened of their existence essentially by, of course, devices. Devices have now taken over childhoods and are kind of forcing toys out of the game, and they have to find out how to get their kid to only, play with them, but also make friends. And this was one, like, at first, when this one was told, when, like, it was talked about, like, oh, it's coming out, I was like, do we need another one? Because the fourth one was a pretty solid ending already, and I felt the same way about the third one. And after watching it, I was like, dude, this was actually really great update movie for the current generation of children, because the first one came out in the 90s, and man, it's times really have changed since the first one came out. So I thought the animation, I think this is the best one of the bunch. Like, all the updates have finally accrued to this, and I just can't praise enough. Like, the voice cast is always great, and it actually had a lot of good commentary on childhood, like children growing up in the last 10-ish years. But Bern, what did you happen to think about this one? Were you like looking forward to this, or were you kind of like more on my side where I was like, do we really need this right now? But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, this was always going to be a tough sell for me just because, the first Toy Story is still probably my favorite Pixar movie of all time. And I thought Toy Story 3 was a great ending to, that story. And so when the fourth one was announced, I was a little apprehensive to that one. But that one turned out to be a pretty good entry into the quadrilogy at that time. And I thought, okay, if they leave it here, felt like a really nice goodbye to Woody and the rest of the toys. We can leave it at this one. And then, like you, when they announced the fifth one, I was like, oh man, do we really want to keep going back to this well? Because, you feel like it could have the potential to just like ruin it all. But I'm glad to say that this movie did not do that. It didn't. I don't feel like it ruined it at all. I think like you, it did have something interesting to say. Kids these days are growing up in different conditions than we did back in the 90s. It felt like the first three movies were very much a millennial's childhood. We kind of grew up with Andy by the time that the ending of the third movie, we were all kind of going to college like he was. So now with this new kid, Bonnie introduced in the third one, and then the last movie in this one, it's different. It's a different time growing up, and I thought this movie captured that pretty well, with this new advancements in tech, the whole idea of the iPad kids now, it's like, they're not growing up playing with toys really like we used to. So how is that different, from the toys perspective? And I thought the way they tackled that in this movie was pretty fun. And I think, like you mentioned, the voice cast that all came back could all do a really great job. They all kind of live and breathe these roles, so they kind of picked up right where they left off. And I think I want to give a special shout out to Joan Cusack. I thought, Jessie, her performance as Jessie, I think for the longest time has been one of the more underrated vocal performances that we've gotten. And I think in this one, she finally has kind of a really good amount to do. And I found the things that they were doing with her character very interesting. So that was a fun adventure to go on. I think the first half of the movie felt a little bit kind of messy to me, but by the second half and definitely by the end of it, it felt like all these like disparate storylines that they sort of introduced all kind of came together and really brought in that sort of Toy Story magic that these movies tend to bring, where it has the heart, it has the humor, and it has something interesting to say. So I think it did all of those things by the end of it. Whereas in the beginning of it, I was a little bit nervous, obviously coming in a little bit apprehensive and not really jiving with the first half. But by the second half of it, I thought this is a really good entry. I'm glad that they kind of landed this plane instead of crashing and burning like I was I was dreading it would be.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't really notice anything with the first half. I thought the intro was a definitely interesting way to start, just because the last few Toy Story has its typical like little intro, like, being imaginative with the toys and stuff and whatever shenanigans they're doing. So the intro is definitely different. I can't really think about too much, but when I see upon rewatch, I'm gonna see if I could pick up what you're talking about, Bernie. Overall, like I said, I thought this was definitely a solid story. I just like the commentary about, like, the whole iPad kids, and also just on social media in general, like technology, where devices are supposed to help us like expand our knowledge and our connection to people all around the world, and so is social media. It's supposed to help keep us connected, and it's like, obviously we've seen, or at least our generation has seen it, it's the very opposite a good portion of the time, especially the way the younger kids deal with it and stuff. So I thought this was really great on that. And yeah, it's definitely it's a pill to swallow to think, like, man, kids don't really have toys like we did back in the day, like those iconic things, like we had Power Rangers, maybe some Ghostbusters stuff here and there, or just more contemporary things that, like, oh my god, I gotta get that toy. My usual were Power Rangers and Jurassic Park stuff, but anyways. So it was definitely interesting to see how they did it. I like that we got to see, you know what, never mind. I don't want to spoil any toys that are in this, because there's just some pleasant surprises. That's all I got to say. And we've also got voice talents like, Conan O'Brien comes to mind, where he's a really funny toy. He's got some good lines. Keanu Reeves comes back as a character. And yeah, Joan Cusack, ever since her character in Bullseye came in from the second one, she was instantly one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. Like, oh my god, was Woody and Buzz. I can't talk right now. And then it became, and Jessie was like the third one. It's almost like the DC Trinity, but for Disney. So, with all that being said, I feel like they're all pretty equally great, but I think my favorite one's still the second or first one. They're kind of tied. I'm a sucker for nostalgia, and it's great seeing him back after having my little doubts. I'm going to give this one a hard 5 out of 5. I think this is one of the stronger movies of the year. Perfect for summer if you just want to go in for some good-hearted fun, some comedy, and just good commentary on, current generation of kids today and the last few years. So definitely recommend this one, especially if you have kids. I actually went to go see it with my godson, who's like, this is his first big movie, and he actually did really well. So shout out to him on that. But yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one is an easy recommend for sure. I think for if you're a fan of the Toy Story franchise, or if you're just a fan of Pixar or animated movies in general, I think kids and people of all ages are going to go into this and have a good time. I think even though for me, I think this is probably the weakest one of the 5 movies. I would say that even though this is probably at the bottom of my list of the Toy Story rankings, it's still like head and shoulders above a lot of other animated movies we tend to get. Not to mention like the Minion movies, things like that. This is like even like way better than the weakest Toy Story movies is better than a lot of things, and I think that's saying a lot, because you do see the love and care that these animators, the studio have for these characters, and I think they do them all justice for the stories that they give us. Even though in this movie I do kind of feel like as much as I love Woody, it feels like if you took him out of this movie, the movie would still be the same. It was fun to see his interaction, with him and Buzz, and sort of reliving some of those moments of from Toy Story 1, where they were sort of at each other's throats. So that was pretty fun. Like you, I really enjoyed Conan O'Brien's Smarty Pants. He is a fun, really fun character, and I thought that he voiced that really well. And And yeah, I think this movie is just a really fun time. You know, I think like you said, it has a lot of interesting things to say. It's animated really well. Obviously, it's the most beautiful one of the five just because of the advancements in animation technology. So if you're going into this, you're gonna have a great time. I had a really good time. Even though, like I said, this isn't my favorite Toy Story movie, this one's still a really good time at the movies, and I think this one will be a soft 4 out of 5 for me.
That's very fair. That's very fair, Burn. Yeah, like I said, it was. Honestly, you make a good point. If Woody really, if his storyline wasn't in it, the story wouldn't have been affected. But it's still one of those things. Like you can't. I feel like you can't have a Toy Story movie without Woody and Buzz, at least or at least Woody without some aspect of it. So that's why they had to bring it back. But yeah, 5 out of 5 from me, 4 out of 5 from Burn. For those of you that happen to catch it this weekend, feel free to let us know what you thought about it in the comments. No spoilers, of course. But yeah, we're nearing June, so we got Supergirl coming out next week. So keep an eye out for that review coming up and our mid-year review because we're already halfway through 2026, everyone. So as always, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.